Hello everyone, Allison From-Tapp back from Spalding University's Counseling Center on day 17 of our Greater Good Toolkit series. So today we're talking about making an effective apology, which I know is really hard for a lot of us. So let's talk about why you should try that. Apologizing for an offense is an important step towards forgiveness and reconciliation. Not all apologies are equally effective. In an effort to avoid blame, we sometimes offer apologies that are hedged or incomplete, and these half-baked apologies are less likely to be well received. In some cases, they may even backfire, fueling hurt or resentment. It takes courage and vulnerability to admit wrongdoing and try to make things right. There's always the possibility that our efforts will be rebuffed. But given the healing potential of an apology for all parties, it is a worthy effort, even if forgiveness is not the end result. There's a great quote here from Martin Luther King Jr. "Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a permanent attitude." So let's talk about how you would do this. So first, acknowledge the offense. Acknowledging the offense is an essential element of a good apology, but many apologies don't do this adequately. Apologies are most likely to be well received if you show that you recognize who was responsible, who was harmed, and the nature of the offense. For example, you could say, "I made a mistake." That is more effective than saying mistakes were made, which fails to allocate the responsibility. Similarly, acknowledging that harm occurred is better than making vague statements that minimize the legitimacy of the offended person's grievances. So saying, "I'm sorry you feel hurt," or fail to acknowledge the specific offense. So saying, "I'm sorry for whatever I said yesterday," rather than just saying, "I'm sorry I made an insensitive joke." Provide an explanation. This is number 2. In some cases, it is helpful to explain an offense, especially to convey that it was not intentional and that it will not happen again. We have to be really careful about intention versus impact, because sometimes we really don't mean to be intentionally harmful, but that's the impact others may feel. Explanations that sound like excuses or blame the victim tend to be counterproductive. So saying "you were really getting on my nerves" is not a good apology. It's better to say "there's no excuse for my behavior" than to offer a shallow defense. Number 3, express remorse. When you hurt someone, it is natural to feel shame, maybe humiliation or remorse. It is also great to be able to acknowledge that and still apologize. Expressing those feelings communicates that you recognize and regret the suffering that you caused. Be careful of phrases like "that was uncharacteristic of me," which might convey that you are not taking full ownership for what happened. Instead, acknowledge your disappointment in yourself and your commitment to improve. Number 4, make amends. A good apology should include efforts to repair the damage done when that is possible. Reparation for tangible offenses, such as loss of property, might involve compensation or replacement, whereas reparation for less tangible offenses, such as a violation of trust, might involve taking steps to improve your behavior, such as attending marriage counseling. When considering how to best make amends, be sure to ask the offended person what would mean the most to them, what's important to them, rather than simply just doing something to relieve your own feelings of guilt. Self-punishment, for example, might alleviate guilt without actually benefiting the victim in any way. The amount of time an apology takes depends on the nature of the offense and the reparations you plan to make. Try to follow these guidelines anytime you feel you've done something that harmed others. Now, why we know that this is good and why it works. Apologies that include these 3 elements are more likely to be effective because they satisfy the psychological needs of the offended person. They can restore the offended person's sense of dignity, validating that they are not to blame and did not deserve to be hurt. They can give the offended person an opportunity to express their feelings and grieve their losses And in some cases, they can contribute to a sense of justice. A sincere apology can also reassure victims that they are safe from further harm, making them more likely to trust the offender again. Thanks for listening, and remember, pay attention to your impact as well as your intentions.